we start, just to acknowledge a couple of things. One, I hope, part of our intent with these convenings is to try and provide a safe space to have hard conversations. And sometimes those hard conversations might be happening for the first time. Sometimes even teams that have been well into this work are still going to bump into each other and have real conflict. And that's okay. That's part of the process. I want to ask everybody, if they can, on your agenda document, take a look on the back side of that for one moment. And you'll see there's a little section that is kind of insights from ABC Unified. And again, ABC is a real school district, and they're really national leaders in this work. And just take a second and read the couple of things that are on that list. I think it's helpful when you talk about this work. So when I think about what ABC has, been doing over the years, I mean, that's a system where this kind of stuff is really institutionalized, but they still have real issues that are contentious. But they also have this notion of, we have each other's backs because we're locked together in this relationship. This isn't about an absence of conflict, right? You're going to have conflict, you're going to have hurt feelings, you're going to have a whole lot of issues that come up because this work is really difficult, and because the work is so important, because you've got the lives of the children of your community wrapped around in this. And we also know that there's tremendous power dynamics that are at play, right? The power dynamics between labor and management, the power dynamics within communities, around race and class issues. There's a lot of stuff going on that's cooked into this process. And so I just want to recognize that it takes courageous leaders to do this kind of work and to have hard conversations, and that it does not sort of happen all at once, one time. This is something you have to work on over time. Trust is like a muscle, right? The more you work it, the more you build trust. But distrust is like a muscle too. The more you're working the distrust, you're building that up as well. But you have the choice of kind of what road you're going down. So we are really excited to have two, I think, really fascinating case studies, two teams that are in the work, that are your peers out in the valley here. And we have D.E.T.V, which came to our original 2015 convening and has been at this since. And Taft, which came a year ago in this room, and that's kind of where they started their journey. So what happens in your dynamics will not be exactly like this, but part of what we want to do is bringing teams, and every time we do a convening, we have teams come and talk about their journey, because it's important. The storytelling is important. Knowing what's possible is important, and knowing that sort of organizational culture change is possible is really critical. So I'm going to turn this over to Sid, who's going to lead us through kind of a set of questions for the team, and you'll have time to also ask questions of all of them, and hopefully this will be insightful. Sid, take it away. Thank you, D.E.T.V and Taft.
So as we begin the process of this kind of modified fishbowl, a couple things. One is use your playground voice. If later on, when we open it up for questions from you, so everybody can hear. And related to that, as I go through and prompt D.E.T.V and Taft with certain questions, if during the course of that process you have a follow-up question, capture it. Capture it on a note card or a piece of paper, because there will be time after we finish here for you to ask follow-up questions, okay? And I believe that at the end of this session today, we'll have some staff here if you have further questions or needs, all right?
And rooms. And rooms.
And rooms, all right? Well, let's begin. So as I start asking the two teams, I'm going to be prompting actually both of you at the same time. Feel free and raise your hand, and I'll go ahead and call on you. But I'd like to have both teams participate. The first one is an easy one. What prompted you to get involved with LMI? What prompted you to become involved with LMI?
Sure, I'll break the ice. I'm getting a look there from Greg. So the answer to that is actually pretty simple.
Can you each, when you answer, just say who you are and what role you have?
Yes, I'll stand it. Joe Hernandez, Superintendent of D.E.T.V. And the answer to that question is that we were broken. What do I mean we were broken? We were fighting. At every stage you can think of, we just were not agreeing on anything. There was a dark cloud on our district. And even to the point where we recognized that our kids were being affected because of the dark cloud. Even our kids were perceiving and understanding there's something wrong with the system. And so we came to a point, and I'll let somebody else take the rest of the story, when we wrote our application, we said we are just broken. We're not able to function and move forward as a district.
Thank you. Yes.
Just to piggyback off of that, I'm Katrina Schaefer, D.E.T.V Teachers Association. I was in a situation 5 years ago where I became the president. I didn't want to be the president. I was the secretary. I do that well. And because of some resignations of some key players in our organization, I found myself, well, I was being asked to resign as well, to join the club of resignations. And I was like, no, I don't feel good about this. And so right around that same time was when this first LMI conference came up, and there was nowhere to go but up. And I always come back to if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten, because what we were doing was so broken, and even within our union, we had broken components. And so it was like a good opportunity to get a fresh start, and
Ta?
I'm Blanca Cavazos. I'm the superintendent of Taft Union High School District. I'll say we're a district of about 1,000 students, so we're very small. We first learned about LMI when our former chief of human resources and I attended an AXA meeting there in Bakersfield, and representatives came out and they were talking about it, and she and I looked at each other and we said, shall we try this? And why not? I mean, we were desperate, I guess you'd say. And I'll let other members of the team talk, but I would just summarize it in, we'd had enough. We were tired of fighting, and we just had enough. And so I'll take it from there.
Yes.
My name is Mary Villarreal, and I serve on the school district board, and I've been serving for the last 18 years. And from the board's perspective is what we were hearing and what we were hearing, you know, on both sides of the fence is we too were desperate to find a common ground and bring peace, because and the way the board should be involved is in encouraging it. Hey, whatever it takes to try to bring trust back into our district, we need to do, because it's not about right or wrong or this side or that side. It's, you know, trying to do the best for all. You know, it's not a one or the other side. And so we were also trying to find the common ground, and so we we pretty much directed the superintendent, whatever you can do to find that. And the board's role is to support that and not be adversarial, to come also to the table and check our hearts to say what matters. And of course, it's educating our children, you know, and so that's why it's important also for the board to also direct and push and do whatever it takes to be supportive in that, to bring common ground to all. So, and I just want to stand here and appreciate both DTA and CSEA for joining that cause, because it takes all of us to work towards, you know, that peace process, and I commend them. I commend the team.
So
Yes.
just to.
And then we'll go
No, you go.
to you next. Yes.
Please.
I just, Mary's being very modest. May I, Greg, tell part of her story? And I will share Greg's name. At one point, and you know, we have a very great relationship now. At one point, there was a board meeting, where this gentleman asked for my resignation and the superintendent's resignation. That was pretty hard to take. I was new in my role, and that was not an easy thing to hear. And, there were a number of union members there in support, and they were going to drop that bomb and leave. And that had been successful. That had worked 2 previous times in our district. And forgive me, Mary, and the board, I remember it, the board stopped and said, hold on, hang on just one second. And they stopped, and they supported the superintendent. And the superintendent, in the meantime, in the previous 2 years, had been building good relationships with the board. And the board stopped at that point. They stopped the madness, if that's a good way to put it, and said, no, we support our leadership, but what they also said to both of us was, no one's going home, no one's going anywhere, you're gonna stay and work this out. So that was probably the beginning of the really hard work. So I just commend the board, and one of the articles that we read was about, it starts with the board, so that was just.
Thank you.
Oh, no, she said what I was gonna say. The actual word is that Greg asked for my head and the rest of my body. It was just here's the real neat thing about that, and it's a lesson for us, I think, the message here today, that as you go through these tough conversations, you're gonna have to go through this process of a short memory, and I'm gonna say just forgiveness. You're gonna have to say all these things that happened in the past, they need to be erased from your memory.
Yes.
So, you know, we laugh about it now. It was tough. Yeah, he asked for my head, and in the last presentation that we did, you know, Greg introduces me now as his friend. Think about where we were and where we are. Okay, and you have to be able to have that forgiveness. So otherwise, these issues will just weigh you down, and you need to be free from that. So.
Thank you. Greg, would you like to share anything?
No, yeah, we just came to a point where, and I know some of you guys are probably in that same spot, where it wasn't gonna work, and you had to try something. I'm gonna share the part that changed me. She went to the first conference, then so I had to go to the next one, and she said, well, you have to get in the band and ride down there with them. I said, you're crazy, I'll fly down. She said, there's no way I'm gonna get in a band with those people for 3 hours? No, I'm good. Long story short, she got me on the van, and maybe for the first 30 minutes, something like that, nothing, you know, everybody's just kinda cold, started talking, I think it was baseball season, right? The World Series? Anyway, that broke the ice, and when we said our next team, they were still, you know, they were standing off from everybody, they wanna talk, about 20 minutes, you know, and I think now, what we try to model is our relationship, and we're trying not to take up the time so everybody can talk, but when you truly see us together, it's real. We really like each other. We're around each other too much, and now we get in trouble. But anyway, I'll stop.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm Carrie, I'm the SEIU steward along with Kim. I wanted to give a little bit of our backstory because we're a really small district and where we came from for this. We came to contract negotiation time, and our contracts, this is probably, you're all gonna wonder what the heck. It used to take us 2 days to complete a contract. I mean, they were over with, a couple meetings, done. We went into negotiations and we went almost 2 years. It was very difficult. We were without a contract for at least a year and a half. to LMI. Kim and I were brand new stewards. We kind of got thrown in at the beginning of negotiations as brand new stewards, so that was tough. We were having to deal with a lot of the backlash. We lost multiple 10-plus teachers through layoffs or pink slips. We lost over 10 classified members through attrition, and we were in a financial crisis. So we were trying to work with our board, with our administration, and with the unions to figure out a way to handle that. And like Blanca said, it was very, very, very difficult. So when we came here, like Greg said, it was that van ride together. We seriously were like, what excuse can we make not to go to that van? Because I do not want to do this, 2 hours on the road. Yeah, we need to go shopping on the way home. So we made that van ride, we came down, there were some issues that came up from the certificated staff that us as classified members, we were going, oh my gosh, we didn't realize that they were dealing with these issues. They listened to the issues that we were dealing with, and then we went back to our units and we were saying, do you know that they don't have time to work on their curriculum because of this reason? Do you know that we don't have time to do something? And so it started that conversation happening, and we were able, on the way back, we talked the whole way. It was actually that one day, the few hours, was a huge turning point for us.
Thank you. So trust may sound easier than it really is in terms of accomplishing it. When you reflect as team members, as part of a district, part of a group, and now part of LMI, how did you begin working on achieving trust? And there's a follow-up question to that, is what evidence have you seen that it's actually working? Yes.
Yes. I'm Anna from D.E.T.V, CSCA president. Trust. Trust is a big thing to build a relationship.
Right.
Trust, like with Dr. Joe, you know, I came into a picture about 3 years ago into this, getting involved in the union. And so I went to Dr. Joe and, you know, the first thing I told him, you know, your word needs to have value, you know, and what you say, you keep it, you know, what you share with me and tell me, you know, because if your word doesn't have value, then, you know, we can't build a trust and a relationship. And that's a big, important part, you know, the trust, you need to build the trust, keep your word when you say you're gonna do something, you know, and follow through, not just say it, you know. And that's when we as CSCA members see that, you know, that he does follow through with his words when he says something. And that's building trust within our CSCA members, you know, to work with the district, you know, so.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
So, I'm the vice president of Taft Union High School Teachers Association. And I'll be flat out honest, when I heard D.E.T.V speak, I called bull. I said, this is a show. This isn't reality, this is a show. Because the amount of hatred that our group had developed and the rising tensions when you take teachers away from us, we're gonna be heated. And it was way more than 10. So we were super, like, at a breaking point, no contract. Like, they say that you wanted the superintendent fired. I'm telling you right now, we were ready to strike. And we were ready to walk. And we were gonna be super serious about it, and we were gonna have numbers out. So, it's real. That stuff is real. Like, where D.E.T.V was real. Where we were was real. We're only a year into it. Your biggest thing is like what they're talking about, you know, they have more years than we do, is getting in the van together, getting together. Now, some of the administrators sit here and go, ooh, time, classroom time. You don't give that time, you ain't going nowhere. So that we're super clear at the table, you gotta be at the table together. So you gotta come up, so I've been to numerous of these. So the first thing is you gotta find a project to do. So I'm over there going, Dinuba or Downey or whoever, wherever we were each time, give me something, like, what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? It's not like that. It doesn't work like that. You have to decide, and administrators, I'm sorry, but you're gonna hear major things come at you. Like major, because the teachers have to get it out. We have to get it out so that we know that we were heard. And it's not easy. I watched my colleague, and to be flat honest about it, I went to Mary Alice and said, we gotta do something. Who is our principal? And Dr. Cavascos is our superintendent, and she had just gone to a meeting, hey, this fits in perfect. I'll be honest, I'm still calling bull crap. I'm like, it might work for some groups, it's not gonna work here. Because we're hostile, we're over it. So our first project, not only did we have to get together, sit together, we've actually had a few projects. I don't know which one you want me to share, but, so, which one you want me to share? The schedule or this one? Okay, so, we were super upset about our time because not only did we lose teachers, we lost time. We had 2 prep periods. Okay, I know, spoil So we wanted time back, right? We want to get some of our time back to us. So we created a schedule. Now, listen, you're not going to have everybody on board with you right now, I guarantee it. You're going to have your naysayers, you're going to have people who are super hot. I'll look at the Dinuba superintendent, 'cause I don't really know her. So you're going to have people super hot, at him, still, but it's a process. And once you get to the point to where, okay, we have this thing that we're gonna work on together. If you keep your mouth shut and you don't say stuff, you aren't going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. Until you lay it on the table and go, this is what we need. This is how we're gonna get here. And work together. The whole part is working together. And again, there's gonna be times where you go, really? Are we going somewhere? And then boom. It's that pride that after you get that project done, that pride comes together, and you notice that we're all in blue. There's a reason for that. Again, we're only a year into this. When Blanca said that to us in the meeting right before with Ed, I'm like, wait, a year? Really? That's all? It seems like we've been in it for like 3, because I've gone to these things like I don't know how many times. But it's real. It takes time. You're gonna have to get it on the table. Administrators, I'm sorry, but you're gonna hear stuff you don't wanna have to hear. And find your project. Because that's the only way that I can say it, is you gotta find something that works for your district.
Thank you. How many preps do you have? No, I'm just kidding. Yes.
Regarding building trust, see, it wasn't just with the teachers union, we had, as a board, had even trust with superintendents from the past and healing from those things. And so making sure we were being told the truth. And so, but he heard us as well because he had to, right? But put stuff in place, and I know things take time, but you asked about evidence. Dr. Joe implemented a classified breakfast to hear from all staff on a quarterly basis. And I personally tend to try to attend most of them. And the reason why is because those are the moments that you have on a one-to-one basis where you can share your heart. And I know you can attest to this, and I share my heart to let everyone know that whoever works in our district, there's a purpose in it. And regardless of position, you have a purpose. And there was a student who is now an employee who worked at the district and said this, when he was going to school here, when all this was going on, he said this, he said, I felt, even as a kid, that I had to pick a side and I didn't know which side to choose. And so now as an employee of the district, he said that he felt the atmosphere shift. So what we are wanting to accomplish, again, we have to provide a learning environment that's conducive, not only in the classroom, but on the campus. And when we don't think that affects it, we have testimony from someone who's a lifelong Dinubian. And not only that, even from my family, I had 3 children through this process. And of course, you know, for those of you who have students, and I'm going to share this for those board members who have students in your district, please don't take it out on the kids, because my kids got a lot of flack, you know, during this process. And the reason why I'm bringing what the evidence of it is, why I'm bringing my kids up in this story, is because my daughter, who went to school, she got her degree in December, thank God, from mathematics, and she's great, and I always wanted her to teach in Dinuba because, of course, it's our home. And she said, Mom, I would never teach in Dinuba, never. Well, let me tell you something. Because of the shift, because of the policies and procedures that have been put in place and the supports we have for new teachers, she's saying yes to Dinuba. And so again, we live here. I graduated here, live here, and I want you guys to know that this work is important. We do have differences, but let me tell you, people are not your enemy. This is my neighbor. You know what I mean? I have friends and families that work in Dinuba, and I know as a board member, the decisions we make affects not just one, but all. It affects our community. It's your community that needs us. We are educating our future, and if we're fighting, what makes you think that they're not learning from us? It's not what we say or do, it's how we act and how we treat each other. We want students to treat each other with kindness, then we need to treat each other with that. And so it's a heart check. You know, I had to check my heart too. And I am, like I said, I am just so grateful for the team. And I know we don't say it enough, but thank you for all of you guys who are here, who are wanting to do what's best for your districts, to wanting to come together. Because again, we can do more when we're united than we are divided. So I encourage you to continue the work, because it is worth it. It will you will reap the fruits of what you're doing. So.
Thank you. One more response? Yes.
Sure. Hi, I'm Kim. I know I talk. I don't talk.
We're celebrating, folks.
I'm an SEIU rep or steward, also with Carrie, and working in the attendance office, I'm so busy in there with attendance and with discipline and everything that I guess I didn't realize how everything was with the teachers and the administration. Until students started coming in and being in trouble, and they're like, well, it doesn't matter, this teacher says this, or this teacher says that, and everyone was just, you know, the kids were noticing what was going on. And then, once we started this, I am part of the D.E.T.V and the SLT, and being in the SLT with Mary Alice and the department chairs for our teachers, it was amazing to me how rude, how disrespectful some of the teachers were towards her in those meetings. And now, being part of this and going to all these meetings and taking other people to these institutes or whatever, it's changed in those. I think it's getting better. There's still some that aren't so on it yet, but hopefully we'll be. But that's about it.
Thank you. Yes.
So I'm Mary Alice. I'm the principal at the high school. So I walked into this as a new administrator to the district. I'd been an administrator, but I also was a graduate of the high school. My former teachers were teachers there, and I was now the principal. My people I went to high school with were now now teachers. Their kids were our students. So I went from, it got very personal very fast. And I think the thing that I would give advice to administration, you have to know that what comes at you is your position. They are attacking your position. And it's gonna feel super personal, because it's, I mean, they used my name. But a lot of it was the position. And if you look kind of historically at your district, you have to recognize there's a lot that came before you that's the reason that you're here. And you can't, it doesn't work to say, but that wasn't me, because they don't care. I mean, they don't care. And I think the other thing, and you know what Kim is saying about some of our meetings, it was appalling, some of the behavior. And I was sitting there going, okay, I was a faculty member a lot longer than I've been an administrator. I would have never done that. But I think that some teachers are so used to the fight that when you stop the fighting back, they don't know how to work like that. It makes today a lot easier because I don't have to regret anything I did in anger in those moments. I don't have to say, oh my gosh, I really wish I wouldn't have fired back at you publicly. Although some wish I would. Part of it is not who I am. I'm a leader that is going to lead by example. Despite you, I am me. And that's hard when you're in these contentious points. But I will say that there have been some of our members of the negotiation teams, members of the leadership of CTA, we did not see eye to eye on many occasions, and we are now have a very much a mutual respect. And it's not perfect, it's probably not gonna be perfect, but I don't necessarily want it to be either. What I do know is that they are doing what's best for kids, and they know that I'm gonna hold them accountable to that, but they're also going to expect me to hold them accountable to that. And that is a huge shift in culture, because before it was just, you know, how many fires can we start so that Mary Alice is so distracted she can't do what she's supposed to be doing? I mean, I'm sure it wasn't like planned like that, but that's how it felt. So I just, as an administration, it is hard. It is very personal, especially when you're less than 1,000 kids, and it is all who you are in that moment.
So let's continue talking about trust a little bit more. As part of the process and every day when you come to work in your role, there are going to be sometimes challenges with that continuance of building trust. How do your teams manage that? How do you manage continuing or challenges to trust, or how do you manage controversy or conflict?
Well, I think the most important thing is to establish, my name is Wes Morris, I'm the CTA president for Taft High School. And I think the important thing to do is open those lines of communication. And so we've got an established system of, I need to meet with, I'm not gonna call her Dr. Cavazos, she's Blanca to me. I'm gonna meet with Blanca and, you know, we're gonna work things out. Whether I need to text her just before a board meeting because there's an issue that came up, whatever it is, we need to communicate with each other. And I think that's how we've built a lot of that, is just talking to each other and talking things through. And then also, you know, I think probably one of the biggest things I got from this a year ago was, you know, assume good intentions. Because I wasn't assuming good intentions. Our administration was clearly in a conspiracy to destroy Taft High School, to do it. And everything they did was to do that. And it's just not true. You know, and so we had to make a decision. Do we continue to go down this path of, and it was tiring. I'm just tired. I don't want to fight anymore. Like, are we going to keep doing this, or are we going to start trying to work together and get something done? And that's what we've been doing. And it is. It's a continuous process that once you establish that communication, and now I have the confidence and the courage to go and say, hey, Blanca, I have an issue with something, and give her a chance to respond. And she does the same thing to me too. Hey, I just want to let you know this is coming down the pipe. And we work on these things together. And that's how you establish that trust. That's how you work through these issues. And we still have more to work through. And it's not going to be kumbaya. You're not going to go home today and everything's going to be fine. You're just starting your work. But to see where we're at, and I think we're kind of being disingenuous if we say, look how far we've come in a year. You really should have seen how far we went in about 2 to 3 months. The difference was literally in 2 to 3 months, we were working together, whereas it was, us trying to unseat board members so we could get Blanca fired. Like, that's not even a concern anymore. So, we're working together now where we weren't before. She might like retirement, actually. But, we went a long ways in 2 to 3 months, and not over the last year, in 2 to 3 months. And so I've really appreciated it.
Thank you, yes.
I'm going to piggyback on Wes a little bit. He talks about the trust in between administration and CTA. Actually, just in the last few months, we built that trust with administration. We had an HR manager that was there. Kim and we were probably in her office every week. It was really nice. I mean, no one says that about going to the HR office, but it was really nice. We went in every week. We had a great communication. She left our district. It's like we got to the end of our contract. Everything was perfect. She found a better. Thank you for her, and I hate whatever district she went to, but and all of a sudden we had a new HR person come in. For classified, it was rough, and I can't speak for CTA also, but now we're having to rebuild all of that. We did all this building, we had this great relationship, and all of a sudden, and you have somebody new coming in, and any administrator in here, if you are new to a district, you don't know the culture, you don't know the town, and we are a small community. We are the Friday Night Lights community that everybody in the city or town, 12,000 people, whoever, they all have a say in what our board does, what our administration does, what our teachers do. They will tell you what you're doing. And so when a new person comes in, especially administrator, and they don't know our town, it's like there's this backpedaling, and we felt like we were taking steps back. So now we're trying to rebuild that. A few months ago, we sat down with CTA. We hadn't had these discussions. There was a lot of butting heads. There was a lot of water cooler talk as far as, oh, this is happening. Like Marcia said, they lost a lot of teachers. We didn't get pink slips. We were going through, and we're saying, well, we're losing people too, and they're saying, well, but you didn't lose all your people at once, and there was a lot of this back and forth, and it was ugly. And then we're like, this is, again, our kids are feeling this. I'm doing your paperwork. Do you want me to do your paperwork? Well, I'm not going to do your paperwork because you're talking smack about me. So even, we started having meetings. We started inviting CTA reps into our meetings to hear what are our issues, what's happening. Our custodial staff, they're having an issue with something crazy, going on, or things being left out or whatever, and they can't get to it. Well, here, let's explain why. And then they started hearing our issues also. And it was really nice to hear that back and forth, but that just started happening within the last few months. It didn't happen at the beginning because we started hitting the big issues. It was the administration and building the trust in between us. And then we said, wait, now we need to build trust in between our two units, because that was huge, because we are the ones that are there every day seeing these students.
Thank you. Yes.
So I think the most important part of what we're kind of talking about is we did a chart. We actually took this from D.E.T.V, who took this from the ABC school that we didn't really think existed, but does, in Los Angeles. So, and again, it's super important to keep this chart moving and keep these communication lines going, and because these solve little things before they become the big items. So you would Wes is talking to Blanca, HR is meeting with Wes and I and the stewards. Blanca's meeting with the stewards and Wes. It's a back and forth chain. Mary Alice meets with her departments. This whole system has to be in place, because these become, like, I know you're looking at me going, yeah, they're not that little, they're big problems, Marcia, they're not that little. But they will become smaller, and these contacts will make a big difference as an ongoing communication line. I just wanted to hit that point because we were talking around it, but this is crucial to the whole process.
And we'll upload that document, and this is something from TAF, but you'll also see this in many places. It's kind of a structure of, you know, who's talking to who. You have regular joint committee meetings with HR and your stewards or union, you know, reps. Is the business person in the central office talking to whoever's a lead negotiator? And there's ways to look at structures to have continual, ongoing joint communications. And that's what they were referring to, and we'll give you some examples of that as well. Because it's both the personal trust issues you're hearing about, and it's also some of the structures you can put in place to facilitate communication and information flow.
One more, and then we're gonna have a final prompt, yes.
Right, thank you, and I should have clarified earlier, I'm the assistant superintendent, my name is Marty. We were talking at lunch about, our culture has really shifted into solving at the lowest level possible. We do have a number of structures, thank you Marcia for mentioning that one. We have a site problem, a committee for problem resolution that will take place at each site. That's in our certificated contract. We decided that we would extend that invitation, even though it's not in writing, we would invite our classified folks to join that. So what we find now is that items and the big, little, whatever are solved at the lowest level. It used to be, they went, grievance went straight to the CTA. I call it CTA. It didn't even go to our local. It went straight to CTA, and that's how we heard about it. We haven't seen a grievance in what, 5 years? So that's the difference. That is an evidentiary hard fact.
Thank you. So, building off of trust, and it sounds like, and I think everybody understands it, when there's trust there, people feel good. But this work just isn't about feeling good. At the end of the day, we have to engage and work. And you feel good when you're successful in engaging in that work. So I have a question for you. Can you describe what projects or focus areas that you're currently working on now that you've engaged with LMI? Greg?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ladies first, always.
Okay, so something that it honestly didn't occur to me until I think I was talking to a couple of, in the previous breakout. So we are a school that is changing demographics, like many of us are, and we recently have been identified as eligible, I love the word, for differentiated assistance. So that's not anything, nobody's happy when they get that notice, but I will say that what that said, had that happened a year ago, it would have been horrible, because it would have been the finger pointing of who's now responsible for this, and I mean, we're still gonna wade through some of that, but we now have a structure in place where we can actually start talking about student achievement. And oh my gosh, what a concept, you know, because honestly we were spending so much of our time talking about the adults on campus that we weren't talking about our kids. And I had a meeting, you know, last week, and Marcia was there. The entire meeting was about student achievement and what we can do to address our pitfalls and and it's just so refreshing because we have issues. I mean, you don't get into differentiated assistance because things are rocking and rolling and doing awesome. I mean, we have needs, but now we're not looking at it as like, okay, this is your problem to solve, math department, this is your problem to solve, administration. We have all these department chairs sitting there, program leads saying, how do we address this as an entire school? And then we carry that conversation into our DLT. How do we address this? Do people understand the data? And having those conversations, which that would not have been where we would have started over a year ago had we gotten this eligibility.
Wow, thank you. Joe?
Yeah, so some of the things that we're doing, we're learning together. So for example, we're involved with Fresno State and some coherence work. And we're doing that together, all the sites and our principals and district admin. So we're learning about coherence and how to work together and how to be on the same page. And I'll give you some examples of the things that we've done here recently at the start of the year. For the past few years, we've had so many issues in the classroom with kids that they're just blowing up. And it's just like all over, and it's just happened, you know, I would say within the last decade, if you really see it came to a head. And so we said, we're gonna get training on trauma-informed practices to help us. But right now, we need something now. So we came together with our union, and we go, we gotta figure something, because it was a pressure point. And at the end of that, we said, you know, one thing we could do, if you could put a behavioral intervention aid at every site, where the principal could address those hot spots, that would help immediately. And we all agreed, hey, that was the logical step. And so we did that. And I just heard a couple days ago that it's working, that it's really, really it hasn't solved everything. We still have the issues. But now, you know, teachers feel better about the fact that there's someone that can help them in those situations. The administrator has somebody that can help them. And it's evidence of working together, coming together to solve the problem. And that's just one of the things that we've done in D.E.T.V to really change the culture of how we do things. Right? Maybe in the past, we probably wouldn't have gone through that process. Okay, we're gonna grieve this, or we're gonna do that, and we're gonna tie you up, and now it's about coming together and finding solutions. And there's a lot of brain power in when groups come together like this. Another thing that has helped our process is we want to be able not just to go on that chart, not just to keep that at the district level and the officer level in the union, but we want it at the site level, because that's where the power is as well. And so we're able to have site reps and principals meet together and come together. And give an example of why that's so powerful, because if not, then they start pushing all the issues up, because the issues come to us. And so we had a case a couple of years ago where it worked out perfectly. We had a site that said 2 teachers came to Greg and said, hey, principal's being blah, 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 right? And then the principal comes to me, those 2 teachers are being naughty, naughty, naughty. Okay. So I got together with Greg and said, how are we going to solve this? He says, I'll tell you, I have an idea. So we got together, we told the group, okay, look, Greg and I can solve this for you. We can solve it today by 3 o'clock. We can solve it. But we're not at that site. We don't teach there or leaders there. So that we don't really have a whole lot vested in this, right? Or you guys can go back and solve it. What do you want? We'll go back and solve it. Thank you. They went back and they solved it. And they solved it to their. So we want to be able to empower sites, because issues are best solved at the closest point of contact. We all know that. So it isn't about us addressing issues. We want to be able to take that systemically through the system. And then we're trying to get those relationships nurtured. We met with every site rep and principal. We kind of modeled for them what this looks like.
Nice.
And at first they were very uneasy about it. Yeah. There was no agendas. There was nothing. It's just really, it's part of that trust question. It's understanding one another. We find out, Greg and I found out, we didn't like each other. We didn't even know each other. We didn't like each other. Once you spend time with someone, you find out all the commonalities. And we have a lot of mutual interests, lots of them. And so that is the shift. And the last thing I'll say here, because it's probably the final word, what this does, because you're not fighting conflicts or being sucked into, you heard earlier, that black hole of time that education will take, then you actually get energy. You're energized, because now you have things to do, things that are very productive. Evidence of that is that we thanks to Greg and other teachers, put together a really good sports plan for our kids that we didn't have before, that was missing. And they know what they're doing. And by the way, it's great for kids, right? So we started generating those kinds of conversations. We're looking at opening up, telling people, disabled students cafe across the street for our disabled students, and then get them placed in jobs in the city. It would never happen if we were at odds with one another. Could not happen. So it does release you to do, energize, and do things that aren't even possible when you're not working collaboratively.
I just want to
yes.
go. I'm sorry.
Part of trust also as a classified, being treated equitable with the other units also. I think that's a big, you know, it doesn't matter whether you have a degree, you make more money or not, where it should be treated fairly and equally at the same level, and I think that has a lot to do about trust and making a relationship. And, you know, classified plays a big role in the district, just like any of the other two units, you know. We are the gatekeepers. We are the ones that bring the kids to school, bus drivers, custodians, open the gates, food service are the ones that give them the breakfast. You know, who answers the phone first thing in the morning? Secretaries, the aides, helpers to the teachers. So we play a big role, you know. The same way we need you, you need us. So we want to be treated fairly and equitable. And I want that administrators to know that and value us, and we matter. Thank you.
So what have you seen done in terms of intentional acts that has supported that?
Well, I've had conversations with Dr. Joe and HR. They've given us the time to listen to our concerns and did something about it, you know, and when we see actions being done, that means a lot to us.
Important.
Yes, very important.
Thank you. Yes.
I just wanted to add, and I'm probably stepping on Marty's toes here, but we have a teacher recruitment and retention program. That was probably one of our first projects that came. Is this the fourth year, I want to say? Because of the issue that we weren't able to retain teachers. And so that was a really big concern. And out of that, we developed this program that is, oh my gosh, it's a very robust program to help assist the teachers. And this is on top of PITSA. This is assigned a mentor, time to help them at their sites to figure out the attendance system, to
A paid mentorship, I might add.
correct,
Wow.
correct.
Paid mentorship.
That's huge.
Yes. And so like that, what I think for me resonates is one of the first big problems, or big programs. Sorry, not problems. Back to the site committee for problem resolution. That is a system that has come back into play. That is a regular monthly meeting. I don't know if they said that. A monthly meeting of key players at your site, both certificated and classified. They also have meetings with the principal and the site reps, separate from that site committee for problem resolution, more for like a hospitality basis, but also to discuss problems. We also have key players within the district that meet regularly. Like Greg mentioned, he meets with the superintendent weekly. We have certain parties that meet with those players as well, both classified and certificated. So we do have a lot of systems and programs in place that we have seen the success. And then one more thing, going back to bringing it back to the site level. And I know this sounds, I always joke, you know, the Dr. Phil always tells you, you already know what he's going to tell you. It's nothing new, but for some reason when he says it, it's like, oh, it's an epiphany. So, no, I'm serious. So, going back and solving things at a lower level. Don't allow the issues to balloon and expand so that they explode and then all of a sudden it's this giant, huge mess on your hands. Whereas you have to, and it's part of the system, it's part of the requirements of working together to say, oh, okay, you have an issue with your supervisor? Okay, let's go talk to your supervisor. Or have you talk to your site rep first? Bringing it back to that level versus, oh, okay, let's call Dr. Joe or let's call Greg and see if they can solve it. And so that's part of the protocols I think that have been very helpful for us too.
Thank you. Yes.
Can I just a
Yeah,
statistic, the year that Katrina's talking about, this is about 5 years ago when things were very contentious, we lost 30 teachers in 1 year. And that's, you know, attrition, people, marriages, some just, but remember, but what we heard was the main reason the teachers union came, you're losing teachers because you're not paying them enough. Our salary schedule is not competitive, our benefits, we're losing all these teachers. So that's where that came from. This year we offered a $5,000 early tell retirement. We got 12 total out of about 1,000 employees, classified, certificated, only 12 would even bite at that $5,000 early tell. So now we can't get, that's no, I'm kidding. But you know what I mean? But it speaks to people are staying longer, they're not moving, they're happy. We're now a destination district rather than an exodus. That's what that's changed.
We still need more money though.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're about ready to open it up for some questions from the audience. But I want you to think about this. Think about how powerful it is to hear from groups and individuals that have already begun this initiative, because it's interesting. As I reflect on my career, it sure seems like parents know everything that a teacher does and goes through. They just seem to know everything. And school staff, they seem to know everything that classified would have to go through, and teachers and classified seem to know, yeah, I know what assistant soups do, and I know what they would need to do. But unless you sit in that seat, unless you engage in that role, you really don't know. So having an opportunity to hear staff that have actually lived and worked within the context of our work of LMI is really a benefit. So we have an opportunity to peel back some additional layers. What other questions might you have for any of the panel members here today? Yes?
We've got a broad representation here in our group today, and I realize...
I'm sorry, can you hear him in the back?
Sorry.
Okay, playground voice.
We've got some broad representation in our Riverdale group today with people in different roles, and as I was formulating this question, I realized that I overlooked some folks in our classified managers, our classified management, and I was wondering if you might share some perspective on how your classified management has engaged in this work.
So with us being stewards, we actually, and I believe Gustavo put this in your guys' resource guide, we flipped around this, I'm sure you all saw this earlier with the triangle. We flipped this around and we kind of built it, made it our own. And how we, obviously our lives start with our students and with our students. We actually start at the department level. So our department managers, our classified managers, our departments themselves, they meet, they figure out what they need. And then it comes down to, and this is something that I mentioned, or I wanted to mention earlier, when it comes to, when I was down in San Diego at the LMI down there, somebody came up to me and I said, what does your district learning team look like? Or I think some of them call them district leadership teams. Ours is district learning team, and they said, oh, it's our superintendents and our principals, our site principals. And I'm like, oh, well, they're the ones that make all the decisions anyways, and your board members. So we actually turned it around. It starts with our professional learning team, which is our classified management, our department heads. They discuss things. They bring it to our school leadership team, which Kim is on. She's our classified rep on that. They discuss things there. And then it comes to the district learning team for us, which is board members. We have two classified members on that. We have our union stewards, we have our CTA reps, two teachers, and a couple board members. So it's actually a collective of everybody from the ground up. And so we're really, and Blanca said it best, we're not there to make decisions. The decisions are being made up here at the bottom, or what you would consider the bottom. And they're making those decisions, they're bringing it to us, and we're saying, oh yeah, that's gonna work, or oh, we see this issue coming up. We're not there to turn it down. We're there to say, oh, this, well, what do we need to do? Okay, if we're gonna get out earlier, we're gonna have a tutoring time, are we gonna need bus drivers during that time? How can we make this work? And then we discuss it at that level, but we really let that, our classified staff, our teachers, they're making those adjustments, and they're making them for the students, and they're listening to the students. And then then they're bringing it up. Because when you have everybody at the top that's not in the classroom making the decisions, they're not seeing the day-to-day, what's happening with our kids. Does that help? Does that explain? I mean, I know I kind of got off on something else a little bit there. But our classified management they are having every meetings, we actually have them weekly, and our department reps, they meet every 2 weeks, and we talk about issues that are coming from those departments themselves.
Jeff, I'll just answer this. I think we need to do a better job of that in Danube with our classified management. I would say that's the one group that we still need to bring in more into these connections. Now, we do have, and I know Hannah could talk forever about him, but we did bring in a custodial supervisor who really understands the nature of collaboration. And a few years ago, our custodial group was just a very difficult group to work with. We were just having all kinds of issues. His presence, his leadership, his collaborative style in working with them, and he is now our management employee of the year nominee to county in just a couple of years. Right, Anna?
Right, wonderful.
It matters. So, but we still have work to do in that arena with everyone.
Yes.
Can I ask, as you have friction like between units, is there a venue that kind of found out those things? I'm thinking of like classified folks narrative, like if I don't, teachers orient to me that if I don't have a credential, I don't matter in this space. Or Manuel and I, we negotiated a labor contract together between labor and management. President, you probably remember because we signed you up to sub for us at $500 a day. But I know no teachers in this audience. But we had a deal already made, and then we went in and the board blew it up because that's a three-headed dance. So when it involves multiple units or it involves multiple segments of the organization, like how do you get real about processing that stuff? Because we're here trying to figure out how this doesn't become a cult of personality and President Unified. Like when we get blown out, major urban superintendents, the 30 biggest ones across the state, the number of superintendents that have been here 10 years or more is none. Zero. When Chris Steinhauser in Long Beach goes, there'll be none. So the reality is, in all likelihood, that'll probably be my thing. Maybe not, I don't know, but the reality is we're trying to figure out how we bake this into the system so that everybody has their fingerprints on it before we check out.
Yes.
I think for us, and again, we're on the opposite end, we're a very small organization, but, you know, earlier we were talking about, well, somebody said about how they went directly to CTA or directly, for us, it was, they went directly to the board members. And then, you know, we have all this micromanaging, et cetera. What has really helped us is the district learning team, having those structures, because on our district learning team, and Carrie was talking about who the members were, we have 2 board members. So they are hearing it firsthand. They're hearing it firsthand from classified because we've got representatives there. They're hearing it from the teachers. We've got representatives there. They're hearing it from the administrators, from management. We've got representatives there. And so they're the conduit to the rest of the board. So when we're reporting out to the board, and on my report, the superintendent's report to the board in public session, if we have a DLT meeting, I report on the DLT meeting, and then it allows the 2 board members to talk about it as well. And so it's not coming as a surprise so that they then blow it up, because we've already got 2. It only takes 3. We've got a 5-member board. It only takes 3 to make that decision. So you've already got 2 that understand it from the ground up, and I think that's really the key. Is, you know, I love and you know, I have to thank Dinuba because we leaned on them heavily. The reason we were able to move is we leaned on them heavily. We were talking to them. I was calling Joe, and we had a long conversation. They Skyped with us for 45 minutes. And I'm not talking about us administration, I mean us, the teachers and classified, et cetera, so that everybody could understand. And I think that's really the key, is to make sure that they're hearing it from everybody, you know, from the people that are closest to the problem. Again, whatever the issue is, that everybody's involved in hearing that, because then that gets communicated out. And for us, you know, where they have our board members' numbers on speed dial, you know, seriously. People will call them first.
But that happens at a
And,
75,000.
yes, shocking, I know it's shocking to me, but, you know, when that's happening, it makes it harder when we're all talking to each other already, and you've got a structure where that's happening, and then because of the way that the structure feeds each other, if you look at those arrows, they go back and forth. You're communicating back and forth, and you build into the structure where the talking is going back and forth. Because there are times that there's some things that I would like to say, but it wouldn't be as effective as if Wes and I are having a conversation and Wes can answer that very quickly. Why? Because he knows the answer. I don't have to tell him. He was there. He was part of making the decision, or Kim or Carrie were there, or somebody else. And they're the ones that are already, I'll say, defending it. Because you know what? It wasn't mine. They're not defending my decision. They're defending our decision. So that's what I would advise is those structures are really, really key. They're, you know, Wes talked about how we moved quickly, and I think we moved quickly because that was one of the things that was shared with us, and we implemented that and started on that really wholeheartedly right away. Are we there yet? We don't even know where there is. You know, honestly, where is there for us? But we are so much further down the road that honestly, driving up here, we went, gosh, it was last February that we were in Dinuba. I mean, we've made a lot of progress, and we have a lot of road to cover, but we have the right people at the table. And I think that's the question is, do you have everybody that needs to be there at the table? Because if you have somebody missing, they're the ones that are gonna go off, and there's nobody to answer them. And then it gets big.
Just real quick, from the board member's perspective, is I agree, the reason why we used to have our meetings 11, 12, o'clock, and the way we cut that is because of the subcommittees. There's 2 board members at each subcommittee, and there's curriculum, budget and finance, human relations, and facilities, and things like that. And the reason why is because and not only that, we implemented 2 meetings. We have 2 reviews. It's brought up at one meeting, and then we have time to review the contracts without being, quote, surprised. And see, that's where the lack of trust, hey, we gotta approve a, $10 million contract like tonight, and we just got it a few days before. And so those are the things, I don't know how Fresno Unified is set up, but those subcommittees are really important, because now we know that there's 2 board members sitting and listening and making sure that, we're going on the right track according to our goals and values. And so that helps a lot. So, because we are talking negotiations, budget, budget and finance, here's our goals, here's what it's gonna take. And so everyone's on the same page, and that's also shared at the board level as well. So those are the things that need to be in place, especially when you're negotiating.
Joe, some final
Just
thoughts?
about that on that, to kind of piggyback on these conversations. As a part of creating culture, we talked earlier about the classified breakfasts. We just don't have breakfast to have breakfast, even though the breakfasts are nice. The burritos are good. It is really, you create bonds between admin, classified, board, and you get to understand about your culture. And then it's a simple format. Hey, what's going well for you? Marty gets up there and starts to jab all the things that are going well. What's not going so good for you? What are some exciting things that are happening in your world? And so we get feedback. We share that feedback across all levels. We do that with parents. We go to schools. And I call about 20 parents, about 15 of the 20 of them, I invite them. We learned that little trick 2 years ago. It's the same thing. Bring coffee and muffins. What's going well, parents? And they will tell you. What's not going so well, they will tell you. My board is hearing the same thing. principals hearing the same thing. And so we do this at every site, to try to get different board members, so that they also get a feel about what's going on. By the way, in one way, I'm just thinking about a certain situation, you know, because the board, they love to go to the schools and interact, and they should. But this way, we're hearing the same thing. We're going together, and you're building that bond, right? So, and last thing, we also, more important, we do it with students. We bring students together, and we listen to students. And me and Principal Pop here a few weeks ago, we brought about 25 kids together just at the high school over pizza. You'd be surprised what you hear over pizza. And they told us that, you know, same thing, what's going well. They tell you what's not going so well. And we made a few notes. Andrew was writing down, yeah, we've got a ways to go. We've got some things we've got to keep good on. So you bring that kind of, to me, the answer to that is you make that a part of your culture to listen and to take note and to take action to correct those things.
I'd like to thank talented D.E.T.V for sharing their thoughts about their work. And I certainly recognize that you may have other questions that we haven't had a chance to surface, but Joe had mentioned that he and maybe others will be available at the end of our session today if you would like to connect with them to ask. Ed?
So, you know, I'd like to tell you that, you know, this happens every time. A year from now, you can do all this incredible stuff and change and, no, but sometimes it happens. And we have seen, you know, districts, leadership on both labor and management start to work differently, start to build trust, and in pretty short periods of time being able to move. We've also worked with districts that a year or two in, they're still calling, could you come and help facilitate a discussion between the transportation and maintenance folks and their manager? And, you know, this is hard work. But at the kind of fundamental level, you know, what I think you heard was a willingness to assume good intentions, a willingness to use some of those norms of collaboration, a willingness to be vulnerable as leaders. And this is not easy stuff because you will have members or your board or people in the community saying, don't do this, they're co-opting you, they're giving you a bill of goods, don't believe it. But you also have to say, are we courageous enough to step into that space and say, we gotta do something different because we don't like where we are now. I would just ask, is there anybody on the panel here that wants to go back to where you were? So, again, thank you for this. This kind of communication, collaboration spills into a lot of other things, including the school climate, where you heard kind of kids know what's going on, but when the kids know that they're all working together, and the thing that I gotta say is just hats off to D.E.T.V. When you look on their website, what do you see? Their shared mission, labor and management, is to end generational poverty through education. That is a powerful, powerful mission, and that's not small stuff, and that's not something you're gonna do overnight, but the fact that you have that kind of alignment around big, audacious, really important goals, and that you're actually willing to like be vulnerable and work together and have tough conversations and sometimes still, you know, 5 years in, get into real heated issues, and it's not all kumbaya, but hats off to all of you. Thank you so much for being here. We're gonna take a short break, and then we're gonna
Come back at 2:10.
all right, we're gonna be back here at 2:10. Thank you.
We talked a lot about trust. You saw an example of trust in action. So what we want to do next is we want to utilize the next time, the last 40 minutes that we have together, to be able to make some next steps. Think about what are the opportunities in your district. So we're going to ask for a split in groups. If this is your first time at a CALMI, or if you have new members and you would like to stay, we invite you to stay in this room. What we're going to do is we're going to examine the pyramid, right? That tap turned upside down. We're going to go through that and talk about structures. And we'll do a mini SWOT analysis with opportunities and next steps. Should you have already developed some structures, if you've been here 3 to 4 times, and you're ready to take a next step, a different step, and we invite you to join Sid in the next room, and there, you're going to be working on 3-box framework. So you're going to examine some projects you've been in, you're going to examine some structures that you've already built, and take a reflection, take some time to really reflect on your structures, on some of the projects that you're working on. So should you already have projects or structures set, we invite you to join Sid in the other room. It's up to you. We're not going to mandate any, but we're going to give you 1 minute and 15 seconds to do so. On timing. All right? What questions might you have? All right, let's do it. I'm timing you.
I think I know what we've got a mixed bag of folks.
Oh, yeah, the other
Don't send Doug, you wear shorts in the winter.
together here, and we're gonna have a conversation about some of what you just heard about, right? There's a lot of references to things like, mysterious things. They're DLT, right? That's, an acronym for a district learning team, or some people call it, different stuff, and you can certainly name it whatever you want. And, what we don't want you to do is think about this as the LMI work. This is your work, right? This is you making it what fits your context in your district with your union leadership and your management leadership. But what we do know through both the research and from working with, scores and scores of districts of all kinds of sizes and all kinds of demographics all over the state, there are some basic kind of structures that you can build into your system that really facilitate this. And so we want to talk about that and kind of take a little bit of a deeper dive. So one of the things that you'll see in your resource guidebook, if you look on page 27 through 30, there's some really great work from a guy named Patrick Dolan. And he kind of looks at the system of a district, and he looks at it like this. This is on page 27 through 30. There's a variety of things in there, and we'll touch on it a little bit. We're not going to, again, we don't have time to do a whole exercise. We could spend a day on some of this stuff too. But part of the key things that Dolan talked about, and Patrick Dolan, and you're actually, we'll see a little video of him in a minute. Dolan was kind of a really foundational sort of researcher and leader in labor management, relations, in a variety of industries, from the automotive industry to the steel industry, and he spent the later half of his career consulting in public school districts all over the country. He looked at the whole system in a school district, and what he talks about is, at the top you have the three anchors, right? Your Board of Education, your superintendent, and your union leaders, right? Those three are kind of the anchors of the whole system. And what he described as these other boundaries, right? And you might think of boundaries as kind of like the intersection of where things change, where there's kind of connection. He interestingly grouped teachers, support staff, and students, in part because his perception was the folks at the what is often termed on the ground, the boots on the ground, and students feel the most disenfranchised from decision making and leadership. So he grouped them together, which is kind of an interesting thing, right? And in between all of that, you've got other key kind of areas, boundaries, your principals, right? That's a key component of sort of the organizational structure in school districts. Your central office. He also talks about the information system. We can get a little bit deeper into a lot of these. We don't have time to do it all. But he was also early on and also saying there's this outside boundary, this other area of parents and community. And you don't operate in a vacuum. You've got all of the impacts of the families and community dynamics that are also operating and putting pressures on the system. And and you got a whole bunch of specialists at the central office site, right? So we're going to take a little bit of a look at that and how that plays out into some of the structures you heard described, right? So these structures are sort of this district learning team, and the reason we like to call it, you can call it whatever you want, but we like to call it a learning team as opposed to a leadership team, because the basic idea is the folks in all of these areas, they should be learning what is working, just like Joe said, what's working in your system, what's not working in your system, what do we need to do to remove barriers to help you out. So if you've got this district learning team with your superintendent, union leadership, top admin, some board members, likewise the building reps, principals, department chairs, and you may have professional learning communities, grade level teams, all of that. This is an idea of like taking what is a traditional top-down hierarchical structure and creating a listening, learning organization. So we're going to hear a little bit more about that, and we're going to get into that via a video with Patrick Dolan. Unfortunately, Dolan passed away a couple of years ago, but we were able to capture a lot of his kind of thinking on video, and you'll see a little bit of this in just a moment. Let's see if this was Dolan actually in California with a group of districts that were being convened, and let's see if we can get this rolling.
The last piece then that I would transition kind of to a how, so that we deepen the discussion somewhat, and we've already had two examples of people talking about it. In a top-down kind of militarized model with flow like this constantly, I think the way you move to an organizational change process, and we're doing it a bunch of places. I'll use Corona Norco as an example here of something that is going pretty well, but also I can get into the difficulties in the second and third year. Right? I think you have to build some sort of a learning and collaborative place at the district level. Almost nobody does it. And the reason you have to do that is you have to have union and management someplace where they actually own the work, the place, right, together. And I say that because of many years of going into these places as a consultant, and if you interview the union, they know all the bad stuff, and the management knows all the good stuff. And then you get them together in the room and you say, here's the reality, and they say, oh, that couldn't be. And you say, what do you mean? And they'll tell you again. all right, what they know is the reality, and they deny each other's reality. There is no place where they actually, these two powerful entities actually can say, this is where we are. Believe it or not, that simple journey early on of truth-telling about what's real, what is working and what isn't working, we have no venues for that. None at all. None at all. You have to create this simply to get on the common ground, and it takes you about a year or two of truth-telling to take the risk, psychologically safe and so forth, to start talking straight around this. And my union sisters and brothers here, when we first get in here, the union comes, and it beats the crap out of the management early on. You know? And the management doesn't quite know how to play that game. All right? They go off. No, they don't. They go off and they say, meow, 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 meow. All right? But they don't know in that moment how to say to Christy, I don't think that's right, and so forth. All right? So you first of all have to learn how to do this, and in the process you create some fun. But the process of what they work on to your issue ought not come so much from here. I mean, we know what but if you have a site structure that's authentic enough that it's got the principal and staff, support staff, and teaching staff chosen by them, so that this is also a collaborative we at the school site, and you drive it off of deep, good, all right, thoughtful PLC work, in which these folks are talking about pedagogy and results and so forth. And you then build a process of listening and learning together, all right, from the work itself, and the men and women who do the work talking to each other, and you keep kind of trying to cultivate strength here, and you stay close to teaching and learning issues, and you have a place here where you say, how are we doing? You don't manage it. You listen and learn together how you're doing. And I add a piece because I think it's critical. You must learn how to talk to the whole system about what you're learning. You must learn to broadcast, to tell the story. This place always has a story about how it's doing, but in some senses they make it up, or they think the principal is in charge of that. You want a collaborative process saying, we just listened to this, the chemistry group and physics, and this is how we're engaging here, we're missing this learner, and so we're talk truth-telling to everybody, short, one page, electronic, this is how we are learning together. When you do that, you create community, you have a collaborative process that grows and so forth, and this group here needs to start listening to those site structures, and the only question you want to ask when you visit them and so forth is, what are you learning and what do we need to know and change it here? So that you are building a counter-collaborative process of listening, learning, engagement, and accountability that goes to that first piece that changes. It comes out of here in a reverse process that comes here, but you must put this in place, and then your shift, your deep change. Notice there's two changes. One is the change around kind of what you address and how you do it. But the deep shift is the process shift of the way you work together. The culture of working together, risk-taking, truth-telling, openness, and so forth. You can't learn that, right? You can't learn that in a seminar. You must learn that in action research, working and listening to each other in a healing way. The last piece is, early on, this work is healing work. And what I mean by that is, this thing doesn't want to do what it is you think it wants to do. Step up, take it, own it, move it. They want you to do it. And they want you to bitch about it. Those are not full adult ways to live, but we get used to them. And so, at least, you left the opening to say, oh, how would you do this? Well, this is a way structure.
So Dolan had some really powerful insights into systems, and there's a lot of research connected to all of that. But part of what we want you to do is to think about kind of what you heard today. You know, this was a day packed with a whole lot of stuff, probably some hard, challenging conversations, some maybe inspirational, hopeful elements, a whole lot of, frames of thinking about stuff, and we know that we threw a lot at you in a short time because we're trying to at least give you sort of an exposure to what this work could be if you want to engage in it, if you think this is relevant for you. We want to give you a little bit of time now to work together as teams and to reflect on what you heard today, what you think are some opportunities in your system, what you might want to put in place in your system if some of this resonates. And you might want to think about what are some of these opportunities to build labor management partnership. We know you're just, in many cases, just starting down this road, getting exposed to some different ways of operating, some different ideas. But we also know that there's huge power out of the creativity of all of the people in the room here. So we want to give you a little bit of time and space. We've got two things, right? We're going to give you chart paper. You can work as a team. You could split into some of these other rooms so we're not all packed in here. And we want you to do a couple things. What are some opportunities you think might be out there for your team? What are some next steps? And we can help you. We'll be circulating around if you have questions. I suggest the couple of open spaces. Let's split up. We're going to come back here. What time are we coming back here?
2:50.
All right, at 2:50. So not a lot of time, but yes.
I'm sorry, when I saw this, I remembered, and when Marcia was talking, she said that she had been to so many of these, and she just tell us what to do. Tell me what are we supposed to do? And no, we were thinking the same thing, I think, when we went to probably San Diego or someplace. What are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? What project? What is it? And I do remember, it came back to me just now, what our first one was our site committee for problem resolution, what I talked about, it is in our certificated contract. And we said, okay, and we hadn't used them for years. It's in there, but we hadn't used it. So we thought, okay, we're going back to that. And we committed to inviting our CSEA groups. And that was our first. Remember, Greg? We charted it out, just all scratched all over chart paper like that. So Brian was like, oh, the light bulb went off. And we committed to that one thing. That was our first project. Remember?
Can I ask a question? Is CSA in the SCCR at the site?
Yes. It's a one member. Yeah, our site principals are instructed to bring you have a certificated member that joins that and a classified find one. And then we have the thing where we have a Google Doc, a common Google Doc. So we have 9 school sites. So all of those feed into our district office, and our district office meets for a district meeting. We review those 9 sheets every month. We meet once a month. We review them so we are aware of what problems are out there. And for a while we had sites that wouldn't turn them in. Oh, we didn't have any problems. No. They were instructed to meet regardless of whether you think you've got problems or not. Meet. I just wanted to, when I saw that, I was like, oh no, I need to share. Yeah.
So we want to give you a little bit of time to do some brainstorming, to get some stuff on paper, to actually think through. Not that you're going to finalize all of your steps, but we just want you to start that process, because we know that as soon as you get back into your space, there's going to be this powerful tug for all of your time to get sucked up and to fall back into the way you always work. So we want to try and give you a little bit of time. We have chart paper. Have at it. Any questions? We'll be back here as a group at 2:50. Okay.